Now, British police have arrested a man from East London as the investigation into the terrorist attack on London Bridge continues. A man's also been arrested at Heathrow Airport in connection with the Manchester bombing more than 2 weeks ago. The country votes in a general election tomorrow. Reaction to the attacks and national security issues are dominating the final days of campaigning. Prime Minister Theresa May says if re-elected, her government will impose tougher anti-terrorism laws, even if it means changing basic human rights. Arise News editorial director Nick Jennings has this report.
Every vote counts as it comes down to the wire. Theresa May on a final campaign push this morning in central London. Following Saturday's terrorist attack on the capital, security has become a critical campaign issue. May's role as Home Secretary, overseeing massive cuts to the police force, making her a target for criticism. She's responded, saying she'll rip up human rights laws and impose tough new restrictions on terror suspects.
I mean longer prison sentences for those convicted of terrorist offences. I mean making it easier for the authorities to deport foreign terrorist suspects back to their own country. And I mean doing more to restrict the freedom and movements of terrorist suspects when we have enough evidence to know they are a threat, but not enough evidence to prosecute them in full in court. And if our human rights laws stop us from doing it, we'll change the laws so we can do it.
Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn doesn't agree with ripping up basic rights to defeat terrorism.
We have to protect our basic freedoms, our basic democracy and our human rights. We are signed up to the European Convention on Human Rights. Our Human Rights Act protects our rights. The way you deal with a threat to democracy is not by reducing democracy, it's by dealing with the threat. That means properly funding our police and security services. She's the one who took 20,000 police officers off the street. We'll put 10,000 back on the street straight away.
Across London and the rest of Britain, extra security arrangements will be in place tomorrow amid concerns that polling stations could be soft targets for more terrorist attacks. Nick Jennings, Arise News.
And Nick Jennings is with me now, and as campaigning in that UK election wraps up today, ahead of tomorrow's vote, I'm also joined by Chidi Obihara, the candidate for the Green Party in East Ham here in London. Thank you very much indeed to both of you for coming in. You're the guest. I'll start with you. How much has this contest been dominated by security and the terror attacks in Manchester?
Well, that's an excellent question. It's impossible to ignore just the strength and the breadth of impact that two terrorist attacks in quick succession just before elections have had across the breadth of the whole country. And of course, in my constituency in East Ham, one of London's most diverse, it's had a real impact, a chilling effect on the way that people see their future. People are very worried about the impact this might have on the way that they are perceived. And I think as a community, as a diverse community as we are, we're desperately keen to get the message across that this is not the time to try and pull us apart. This is a time to work on ways that we can, in a united format, fight this horrible, horrible set of occurrences.
Meanwhile, Nick, the debate on how to fight terrorism has entered the human rights arena. The Prime Minister saying she's willing to change elements of human rights law if it stands in the way of the fight against terror. Is that assertion from her just electioneering as we enter the final leg of the contest?
Well, some people have described it as cheap political talk. And in a way, she's trying to defend her government's position, particularly because they're coming under such attacks for the police cuts. 20,000 police officers lost their jobs in the last few years. But also they're reinforcing the fact that they've actually ploughed more money into the security services. Whether she can actually, if she is re-elected, and we can talk about that in a second, whether she will ever have the power to, rip up human rights and come out with this sort of really tough terrorism laws that they want to come up with, because she's going to meet a lot of legal challenges. There's such issues as habeas corpus, and it's just a question of what kind of tougher terrorism acts we're talking about. If you're talking locking people up without trial, that's going to be very difficult. I mean, let's remember, we are not, unlike France, under a state of emergency.
Absolutely.
If they were to declare Emergency Powers Act, then anything's possible. But at the moment, I think she may well be able to get tougher laws on how online security can be tightened up. She may be able to get tougher laws on how people can be prevented from using phones and internet when they're under house arrest. But actually ripping up the Human Rights Act, I don't think, I mean, that is just political talk.
So, Chidi, what's the Green Party's perspective on how Britain should deal with the terror threat?
Okay, so first off, the Green Party broadly, in our manifesto, state very clearly that we would defend the Human Rights Act and we resume funding of the Equality and Human Rights Commission. This is something that we decided before the series of attacks that we've seen, and it's something that we are determined to stick with, because one of the amazing innovations that the West has given the rest of the world is human rights legislation, and it's what makes us better than them. We're very, very proud of it, and we stand up and we say that repeatedly. Now, in terms of ways of solving the issues that we're facing now with terrorism domestically, we think it's very important to actually pay attention to the detail of what happens and treat each case appropriately. So there have been a couple of arrests, and again, this is very fast moving, so please forgive me if I'm out of date already. But we know that Yusuf Zagbra, forgive my pronunciation, is one of the suspects in the South London Bridge attacks, who was actually already known and being monitored by the Italian authorities. And this is one of those basic examples that goes back to what every other party, apart from the Conservatives, have been arguing about. International cooperation across borders is absolutely key.
Right.
If we'd had access to a broader plethora of the information that's available in European databases, we could make preemptive orders to try and restrict movement.
In this case, the Italians had informed British, they'd informed MI5 that he was a person of note on their watch file. So that information was transferred, and it's become apparent it wasn't acted upon.
Right. Now, let's actually talk about the election itself now coming up tomorrow. The ostensible reason why this snap vote was called, Nick, was for Theresa May to strengthen her hand in Brexit negotiations with the EU. But after several turbulent weeks, she's seen her double-digit lead over the opposition slip. How is it looking for her now on the eve of the
it's been an astonishing few weeks in politics. As you recall, when she called that snap election, there was a great degree of apathy across the country. People were bored and inured. We had an election just 2 years ago in 2015, which the Conservatives won, and then we had the whole Brexit thing. People were tired of talking about Brexit and Article 50 and negotiations with the EU, and she had poll lead of about 20 points at that stage. Now, in the intervening weeks, we've seen that come right down. The latest polls put her lead as low as 4 and some as high as 11. And what the crucial thing is, how many seats are the Conservatives going to win? It looks likely that they will win, but how many seats they win, and will they get that majority, which is 326 votes that they need? There's still a very, very good chance that they won't get the numbers they need, and there could well be a hung parliament.
Well, I mean, we'll have to wait and see what happens. The elections take place tomorrow. I think the polls close at 10, and after that we'll have to await the election results. But in the end, Chidi, it's very unlikely that there's going to be a Green Party government in the UK. So what can the Green Party do to push forward its agenda in those circumstances?
That's a good question. Polls have a plus or minus 3% error around them. It's incredibly volatile. We don't actually know exactly what's going to happen, but you're absolutely right. There's no doubt that there has been a surge in Labour support recently. But there was also a Green surge. And the thing that we do know about the Green Party is that there are pockets of the UK around which the Green Party is doing extremely well. Bristol West, for example, is a target seat that we're quite certain we stand a good chance of winning. But also in places like East Ham, with diverse communities who are finding it very difficult to process the way that the mainstream is approaching this, we're finding there's been a lot of support for the Green Party. So our view is that if, as a Green Party, we can lock in the support from clear constituents who just don't feel represented by the main parties, we'll be able to make the contribution that's required to move Britain in the right direction. We have one MP, Carolyn Lucas, right now, who's made an amazing contribution, who's argued very strongly for the maintenance of the Clean Air Act and holding on to the parts of European legislation that keep our environment safe. If we had one or two more MPs that did that, Britain would definitely be a better place, and I'm sure people would vote for it.
Well, we'll have to watch and see what happens tomorrow. Chidi Obihara from the Green Party, and of course our very own correspondent Nick Jennings, our editorial director. Thank you very much indeed to both of you.